GTKE, we got Photo Steve in the building, man of the hour right now, man. This guy's doing phenomenal work. Man, all around the city, man, cities, man. Steve, man, how you feeling, man?
Good. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me down. I've been looking forward to doing
man,
this.
thank you for coming on the show. Let's get started here. You're Washingtonian.
Yes, born and raised.
What area you grew up in?
So we moved around a lot. I
Yeah.
was born in Everett. We moved all the place. I say Marysville a lot because that's where I went to high school, learned how to drive,
Okay.
kind of all that big stuff.
Okay.
But then we just moved around a lot as a kid.
What the fuck was going on in Marysville? Like growing up wise, what was it like growing up out there?
Yeah, back then there wasn't a whole lot. This is like the 90s.
Yeah.
You want to do it again?
No, we keep
Okay.
going.
I mean, as
Um,
back then, it was the 90s. There wasn't a whole lot going on. My family, they wanted to buy a home for the first time. So it was affordable up there and they didn't mind driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to work
yeah.
every day. So that's how we ended up north.
Big family.
Not just my brother, me, and my parents at the time. They're separated now, but
Yeah.
there was just the four of us.
Okay. Now, growing up, like, any inspirations to where you're at right now? Like, were you a big news guy growing up,
I
like
was
watching the
back.
news?
So when my parents split up, originally we'd stay the weekend at my dad's and be there Monday morning. I always liked watching the Today Show. I don't know why. I
Yeah.
was like fourth grade, but I always like knowledge. I like to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so then as I got older, I was still watching a lot of news, a lot of like King Five and Como.
Yeah.
Didn't really ever think I'd be doing this now. I went a very different direction. I was a home builder and real estate developer for a lot of years.
Okay.
And then later on in my life, I just decided I wanted to try and do something more fulfilling. And I always really found knowledge to be very calming. Even if you don't like what's happening,
Yeah.
just understanding what's happening
Yeah.
to be very like help me understand that it keeps me much calmer about what's going on.
So at a young age, you would say you had the traits of like what you do now, but not necessarily knowing this is the field I would be in.
No, I didn't see a path to it.
Yeah.
Back then TV news was a very different thing.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media of any kind really. So it was
Right.
like, it was trying to be on TV or something. And I didn't really ever have the desire to be on the face of it. What I'm doing now is very different than when I did get into this where I started.
Okay.
I've always just been the camera guy.
Where.
And so when I first started putting stuff on social media, it was just like shots I had, I'd put some text at the bottom and
Yeah.
that was it. And then it progressed. So, ever thinking that it would be my face out there, let alone to so many people, was definitely not something I ever thought would happen.
So as a kid, like, what did you want to do as a kid? Like, what was the dream then? Like when you were younger, growing up.
Growing up, I kind of thought that I would probably be in some sort of communication. I like communicating with people a lot.
Okay.
I thought about law enforcement for a while because I kind of like running into
Like being a
chaos.
cop and shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
That fire department wasn't that exciting to me just
Yeah.
because it was like, you just get a lot of people who just passed out on the toilet, stuff like that. It's a lot of that line of work is that. But,
Yeah.
I wanted to get in the chase, do all that.
Okay.
As I got older and life happened, that just wasn't something I was going to go into.
Okay. What made it like be like as you got older, like pivoting towards that, like towards like I don't think there's more so like the route I want to take.
Yeah, so I
Nowadays.
got, when I got to 20 years old, back then you could get on state patrol, do
Okay.
that for a couple of years, but I never wanted to write tickets. Like
Okay.
at least a lot of people may not like what cops do, but usually at least got half the people want to see you because
Yeah.
somebody called.
Okay.
But state patrol, that's a rough one. Like you're always kind of interjecting yourself into people's days.
Yeah.
So I thought about doing that to get to college. Then I got hired on with a company called Dryer's Ice Cream, which is like on the east side of the country. On the other side, it's called Edie's. And I started making more money than I would in law enforcement. So I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. And then I kind of took a very different path. And then by the time I thought about it again, I was kind of old and
Yeah.
it just didn't make any sense anymore.
Now, what was allowing you to like fucking contrast these things? Like, did you have somebody that was in law enforcement where you can ask them how much they're making and what was it like? Like you said, the ticket thing. Like, how'd you know shit like that, or is that just, this is post internet, right? Or
Mhm.
kind of around that time, like to where like, how did you know? Like, okay, once you heard it, like, okay, I think I'm gonna go a different
Yeah,
way.
I mean, even as a kid, I kind of knew state patrol usually was just the guys who kind of post up. And
Did
no
you?
hate on state patrol, the
Yeah.
guys who do that, great job. You're doing great. It's
Okay.
just I didn't have that type of personality where I could just kind of pull up on people
Okay.
and in their otherwise normal day. And so I kind of knew that early on. The only reason I was interested in it was the free schooling.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
then as I got older, I was like, I just don't want to do 2 years of that. And
Okay.
so I had other friends who went into the profession, knew some other people kind of around my family who'd gotten into it.
Yeah.
And really, I thought it was what I was going to do just because it wasn't, some people get into it. There's a lot of different reasons, a lot of different motivations to get in that line
Yeah.
of work. Um, there are certainly some who just want to be able to tell people what to do and have power.
Yeah, like fucking people that get
Yeah.
bullied in high school and
That's
shit. They
right.
just
And
want power and
that's
shit.
somebody who's not going to do good at the job and not be, not
Right.
enjoy the job. I grew up in a pretty chaotic household,
Right.
a
Yeah.
lot of chaos going on. Sometimes the cops had to come break things up kind
Okay.
of
So
thing.
yeah.
And
Me too. Shit.
yeah, right. So I was kind of used to that type of chaos.
Okay.
And you want to get away from it as you get older, but you also find you probably kind of got desensitized to it. Maybe you're able to operate
Yeah.
pretty well in that type of stuff. And as I got older, and how I ended up in the fire service and EMS service was, when other people are running the other way, I'm like, well, what do we got going on? Let's see what's happening. And trying to help restore chaos to people's worst days, or
Right.
restore stability to people's worst days.
Now in school, what kind of kid were you? Like, was that the kind of kid you were? Like, shit, you see somebody getting bullied, it's like, hey, let's go fucking,
I
let's help
definitely
this
didn't like
guy. You know what I'm
bullies.
saying?
Yeah, I
That's
didn't like bullies. I skipped a lot. I
Yeah.
got, back, I skipped a lot.
Yeah.
I almost didn't graduate high school because
Shit.
of it.
That's
So,
true. That's true, yeah.
but I didn't really get in trouble, but I didn't really do well following the rules, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah.
And I was
Okay.
also, every report card was like, good communication, lacks ability to like follow through and stuff, the
Yeah.
typical ADD type
Was
of
it
thing.
the authority figure thing? Like, fuck, like, I don't like, me personally, I don't
Yeah.
like authority figures, but
I
it's
want
just
to
like,
do something until you tell me I have to do it. And
yeah,
then I don't
yeah,
want to do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
5 minutes ago, I wanted to do it. Now now I want to do
And the
anything
minute you
but
tell
that.
me to
Yeah.
do it, I'm like, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
same way, bro. They're the same way. Now, I'm hearing you said you were more so into cameras and
Mhm.
shooting. So what got you into that? Like, what led you down that path
Yeah.
of picking up a camera?
So as time goes on, about 2015, 2016, I get a camera. I'm just kind of do it as hobby.
Okay.
And, as you know, there's stuff you can learn. You could always get better.
Yeah.
But if you don't kind of have that natural feel for composition, it's
Yeah.
pretty hard to teach that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And I kind of realized I had something there. And I never thought of myself as like having an artistic side.
Yeah.
And then realizing I kind of had this, it just stuck. And so I would just do a lot of still photography, not much in video.
So you started stills.
Yep,
Doing
that's right.
photo Steve, of course.
Yeah,
So that's what I
right.
wanted to get at. Like, so that's where the name photo Steve.
So it's Photogsteve.
Photog. Okay. I
Yeah,
see
it's an
the
old
G.
news
I was
term.
like,
Yeah.
is it Photo G Steve or
Yeah.
Photo? Yeah. Okay. There you
People
go.
drive by me on crime scenes all the time yelling "Photo G" at me, and I
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wave and
Yeah.
run,
Like, yeah.
It's an old news term. The stills or video was always send a photog. That's where it came.
Photog. Okay.
Yep.
That's something I never knew that. Yeah.
I never thought I'd have all these like if I'd known that when I first started, I
Yeah.
probably would have come up with a better name. But
it sticks though.
yeah,
Like
that
it
was
is kind of slang. Like Photo G. What's the number? 80. It's like
81's when I was born.
okay, got you. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't even that creative.
Okay,
It just kind of happened.
But
There
it's
was
a
already
thing.
Photo
Like
G
it's his
Steve.
own thing. Like if
Yep.
you fucking into it, like it's like that's dope. You know what I'm saying? That's when I want to cover the name for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're into photos and stills. So were you just going out and just taking pictures of it, whatever, or did you have a certain niche that you stuck to when you were doing photos?
I really like nightscape photography, city
Oh,
stuff.
nightscape. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot kind of the grittier sides of the city at night.
Okay.
I think that there can be an artistic
Somebody shooting up in the alley.
any of that, whether that's what's going on. I mean,
Fuck with
all of it. There is something about it, right? Because it's humanity. It's human.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Yeah. But you captured some different shit. So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I don't want to
Right.
go and amplify somebody's life that isn't going like they planned.
Yeah. Got you.
That's not it. I don't want to go out. And I think there's always a thin line with that type of
Yeah,
photography,
yeah.
street photography. So there's that. There's people kind of on the other side, people you would avoid, maybe cross the street to avoid.
Okay.
I find something very interesting about
You
somebody
see
out there
the
like that.
like the art and the
Yes.
shit. Yeah.
And then there's also people just out having a good time, having a
Yeah.
good time at night. I like to grab all of that stuff, but
Okay.
I also like long exposure, which is better at night.
So the streaks and shit, like
Yeah.
the
Or
front
you
of the
just
lights.
you do stack, you do an underexposed, spot on, then overexposed, then lay them over later,
Right.
and you get some really neat stuff that
Oh
comes out
shit,
of that.
yeah. That's dope. You know what I'm saying? I'm into that shit too. So is that how you started your IG? Would you say was just
Mhm.
posting stills first?
Yeah, if you want to go back,
Yeah.
I don't know, 1,000 posts ago, you probably just see a bunch of
Stills?
Seattle. Yeah, it'd be a lot of Seattle stuff, Space Needle stuff, street traffic going by, that kind of thing.
Now, what was the motivation? Like, I know, like outside of like, you clearly had a passion for it, but like, going into it, was it like I want to make money from this? Like,
No, it was, originally I liked being able to show people the world in a way they hadn't seen, especially stuff you would normally see. Like I like Space Needle. We all seen the Space
Yeah.
Needle can get played out. But if I can show it to you in a way you've never seen it
Yeah,
before,
okay.
even though you've been past it hundreds, if not thousands of times,
Yeah.
that was something that kind of motivated me to do that. But there was no financial gain in it.
Okay.
It didn't start till about 2018. I was buying these fire trucks that we would use to wet down job sites because when we're digging holes in the summertime, you get
Yeah.
a lot of dust. So
Yeah.
we needed water trucks for that. And then wintertime came and Christmas came, and we would send them out to go collect canned food goods for homeless.
Yeah.
And then we would send them to like Union Gospel Mission or Northwest Harvest. And King 5 wanted to do a story on it. And this guy named Ted Land, who, for those of you who've been around for a little bit, may remember him, he wanted to come out and do a story on it.
Okay.
And so he came out that night. And in my mind, I'm thinking he's going to bring like a camera crew and some other people.
Yeah.
It's just him with a big camera, a bunch of GoPros and some lights.
Right.
He rode the whole night and the next day had a story out. And, you know, somebody who already really liked the news and that, my mind was blown. It was like this light went off of like, this is what I want to do. This guy saw something that he thought was interesting, put together a story and had it on TV the next day.
And then came out dolo at that, like solo by himself. It's fucking
Yeah.
crazy. Word. That's like, shout out him. You know, who'd you say that was?
Ted Land. So he now works in the private sector. I won't say where because he's in the private sector now, but he works in communications now.
Right.
And then from there, I would send him tips here and there, just the stuff I would see going off. And maybe I grabbed something with my cell phone at the time.
Yeah.
But that was it. And it was a mind-blowing experience. At that point, you know, I'm in my late 30s thinking, geez, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing my whole life? I've never been this excited about something before like what I just saw.
So that was the pivot point from stills to like, oh shit, this is like where you were at now type thing.
Yep.
Dope. So then what would be the next step from there? Was it like, okay, I'm finna go full blown, I'm finna upgrade all the equipment? Or is it just like, do I hit him up to kind of like mentor me, like type of thing? Like,
you know, he was a pretty busy guy. He'd always take my call and I'd send him tips. And so he's always very gracious about it. But I didn't really know what I'd be doing. Then 2020 hits.
Okay.
And so 2020 hits. And at the time, I didn't realize it was going to be that big.
That's the pandemic, right?
The pandemic hits and then George Floyd hits. And so there's going to be protests across the country.
Right. That shit was crazy out here too. Yeah.
So when that first was going to come to Seattle, one of my favorite movies is one that National Geographic put out called LA 92.
Okay.
And it goes back to the Rodney King riots.
Okay, yeah.
But what they did that I thought was so good is usually when you watch something, they try and make one side look this way, another side look that way. And what they tried to do was say, hey, here's the decades leading up to it. Let's just make that logical, right? Here's these certain instances that creates this boiling point. Then this situation happens, and then here's what happens after that. And show that, you know, it wasn't good and bad. There were shades of gray. There were a lot of things in between. And it took them, they didn't put that together till about 15 years after that had happened.
Yeah.
So I see this coming. I'm thinking, I want to go create this library of footage and document this as best I can. So when it comes down the road and those things are going to be made, I want to have that library. And I had no idea what was coming. And the night before, so I believe it was a Saturday when things really started getting crazy downtown. The cop cars are getting lit on fire and all that. I was out the night previous.
Okay.
Because I wanted to test out my gear, see how everything was going to work at night. And I remember the day of, there were city leaders up there saying, we can't believe this is happening. We didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
No, bullshit. I was out the night previous and there were already hundreds of people out there going hard.
Yeah.
Some of my wildest footage came from the night before that.
Okay.
Out of that out of the coming months.
Man.
And so then I keep on filming and I'm at that time, like I said, nobody knows who I am. I'm just kind of doing whatever. Then CHOP happens. Okay. And so as that happens, all of a sudden the national news stations start coming to town. And one of them was NBC.
Right.
And because I'm a news nerd, you know, a lot of people who are on TV news, they can walk around, they don't get recognized a lot, but I can see.
You knew the people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even the producer is never on TV. I'm like, I know who that guy is.
Shit, yeah. Okay.
So we're parked in the same parking lot. And one day we get to talking and they say, hey, can you show us what all you do? So I show them some clips and they're like, hey, this is actually really good stuff. We don't see a lot of this. Here's what we pay you to license 30 seconds a night. And I look, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that now. And so it just starts with that. And then Portland started getting really intense. So I'm going Portland one night, Seattle the next night, just back and forth.
Damn.
And loving every bit of it. Not loving, you know, the pain and everything that goes with it, but from someone holding a camera who wants to document something.
You frontlining.
That's it. This is humanity, right? I mean, you got people who weeks previous would not be doing anything like this.
Yeah.
And now they are.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
No, for sure.
And being able to film it in a way that others can't. Because you look at TV news, you know, for them to get even insurance, they got to have a camera guy, a sound guy, the big TV, not, you know, once you get out local. Camera guy, sound guy, producer, they're going to have 2-3 security people.
Yeah.
Maybe no, they got 6-7 people. That's an entourage. And they got to wear these vests so they look like a spectacle.
Yeah.
So people start throwing stuff at them, start messing with them. For me, I can just kind of go in, grab what I need, get out. I think I'm a little bit more respectful too. I'm trying not to get people's faces and stuff. Yeah. And so I was just able to get things they couldn't. And so, you know, I'm probably cheaper than them putting all that together, but it was really more I could just get what they couldn't.
Now, what if as close as you can, what does a number like that look like? Like, okay, they show you, they're like, hey, we can pay you X amount of dollars for your footage. what ballpark? What would a number like that
So it
be?
depends on the market. If
Okay.
it's local market, you're probably down in the low hundreds.
Couple
If-
hundred for
right in
couple
there.
seconds of worth
Yeah,
of footage?
you're usually looking at 30 to 60 seconds. I'll usually send them a few minutes so that way they can refresh it over the next couple of days, and it
Gotcha.
keeps us using the same clip. If you can get to national, you're probably north of 1,000.
Out.
If you got a really good story and you're getting multiple, you
Right.
can be looking at thousands of dollars a night.
And that's for seconds of footage. Just
That's right.
couple
Yeah,
of,
usually upload about 2 minutes, and then they're going to take 30 seconds out of it, and maybe refresh it along the way.
Right.
You know, but you got to look at it too. Like if that's what you were doing every night,
yeah.
man, you're set.
Hell yeah, you fucking
Right.
that-
But they're going to do it for like a week, and then they're never going to talk to you again until something else happens. Right. So
yeah.
it's that's part of why it's so valuable. It's in that
Okay.
moment. And then later on last year, I went to the Middle East when Israel and Gaza started. When
yeah. Oh shit. So you were
Yeah.
out there when that was gonna
out on frontline doing that. And that was interesting. And like now I'm in somewhere that I never thought I'd get to be, but the market wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it's weird how the news works.
Now
you know.
being in East like Israel when that shit's cracking off, is any fear running through your head at these times? Like,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know
there's levels of it. What I wanted to do was really get into Gaza and try and tell that story.
Right.
There was no getting in there. The IDF has that pretty well locked down. That's one of the most secure borders in the world.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm sure a lot of people watching this have their reasons why they think it is. They may not be wrong, but, you know, for my world, I'm just trying to come in and cover it straight, not put my opinion into it. And I really struggled with that one because I think people wanted me to use certain terminology and certain words that maybe in my mind are the right words.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to do this straight, you know, this is a war.
Yeah.
You can call it something else, but for my role, it's a war. Now, take what I've done, the work I've done, I'm passing the baton off. Right now, you can say whatever you want. Please do. That's how this thing's supposed to work.
Yeah.
But I want to come out here and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's the people involved. Here's what the next step is. We were able to break a lot of stuff like U.S. involvement out there. Nobody was touching back then. I was the first one to get U.S. drones in the air above it. Nobody would even run the footage. It took another month for New York Times to finally come out and break the story that we were out there. And it's like, I said this a month ago with footage and I sent it to the New York Times.
Oh shit.
They didn't touch it.
Yeah. So what do you do like when they don't touch it? So you just continue is that more the driving force to where it's like, I have a platform or I'm just going to keep pushing it on my thing. So what pivotal point would you say on the social media side that you've seen like a post wise, whether it's a story that you covered where it went from 0 to 100 real quick, to where you seen a pivotal point like, oh shit, this just took me there. Like, you know what I mean?
There've been a few of them along the way. I think the one that really blew up last year was when the US was going to ban TikTok.
Oh, which they
eventually did. Yeah. But at the
time
time it was still up in the air. And so I did a video about kind of what my experience was, what it's added to my life. And then that thing got like 14, 15 million views.
Oh shit.
And what I found was because I'd added my like experience and my own take, people really resonated because I've tried to stay away from that. Like it doesn't matter what I think or so on. It's just, here's what I saw.
The cover,
Me talking about what I thought, people really resonated. And the click through to follow was much higher per million than anything else I'd ever done.
Almost like a connection. They felt you like, I feel what the fuck you like.
That's right.
Yes, you speaking what I speak, or my thoughts at least.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that shit though? Like, they're fucking, like, if that's real, like they said they passed it and all this shit. I think it said it kicks in about a year. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm not sure if your platform on TikTok is bigger than the one on Instagram, is it?
A lot bigger. Yeah, it's 1.1 million.
Oh shit, on TikTok?
Yeah.
Damn. So like a person like you, how do you feel about that shit? Like this, my biggest platform is that your biggest platform?
It is, yeah.
Potentially going to get took down. What do I do from here?
You know, it's tough because I think it's going to, they've already filed appeal. Yeah. I think it's going to get delayed another year at least.
Yeah.
Any kind of resolution.
I don't think it's going to be like fucking.
Yeah, I don't think it's really going to happen.
Yeah,
I think something will happen. Something will come from it.
Yeah.
But, you know, for now it's trying to push people to other platforms,
right.
to, try and find places they can find value to keep it going. TikTok's a weird place. Like, so TikTok, I got 1.1. I'm coming up on 1.2 million now. On Instagram, 150 something thousand. Right. In the streets, I get recognized as the Instagram guy far more than TikTok.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I think it's because TikTok goes everywhere, right? Like Instagram threads that needle so tight where it needs to go. And so since I'm hyper local, that's really where it is.
Yeah.
So in some ways, from an advertising standpoint and sponsorship, Instagram's far more valuable. So if I can continue to grow that, I think it can outperform what I'm doing on TikTok, even if the number doesn't get that big.
Gotcha. And then like, what do you, from my aspect of TikTok, it's like their algorithm is so cool to where like they get you the new followers. Like, like you said, like you have a broader. It has to be broader,
Right.
and then to have that fucking type of number. So versus something like Instagram, it's more like you said, local to where your niche is type of thing. Now, how do you balance the two, like posting and all these
Yeah.
things? To me, that shit is a headache. Like trying to fucking post and keep up with everything. It's like damn, and then you notice like different engagements on different platforms. So it's like, what the fuck? Should I just concentrate on this one, or should I keep growing the both? Would you say TikTok helped your IG to get to where
It
it's
definitely
at?
helped a lot. And
Yeah.
I find IG, I'm trying to think of where I can express myself more. Like my
Yeah.
Instagram stories,
Yeah.
for those of you who follow, you see this like kind of curated like stories that are posts in my reels.
Yeah.
My stories are more like what kind of goes on in my head and the stuff that I find funny,
Okay.
which is pretty broad. That's how you and I first started talking,
Yeah,
right? With silly fake
yeah.
videos. So
Yeah.
I don't really do that on TikTok
TikTok.
in the same way, right? So
Okay.
it's like over there, it's just kind of here's just the stories, leave it at that.
Okay.
I think people who follow my work on Instagram are going to be more connected with what makes me who I am. You'll
Like
see
you
some,
as an individual.
that's right.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll put stuff of me and my daughter in my
Got you.
stories, things like that, that I don't generally put on TikTok just because it doesn't. When people follow you on Instagram, they're going to be more connected, I
Yeah.
think.
It's more personal. I think.
TikTok, like you'll get a video that goes and does millions, pick
Yeah.
up a bunch of followers because it spoke to whatever you made spoke to them that day.
Yeah.
And then they realize I'm just a Seattle news guy. And
Yeah.
they're like, I don't even know why I followed this guy. They scroll a couple and never see me again.
Yeah. No, their algorithm is definitely different. I try to put a lot of people on TikTok just because I know what it is. A lot of people still think of it as a children's app or
Yeah.
dancing or some other shit. I'm like, no, like if you feed it what you like, actually like and shit, you can learn a lot from TikTok. I learned a ton of shit from fucking TikTok. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like one of my, which I see why they're trying to ban it in my eyes. That's my thing. Now, where you at on conspiracy theories? You're in a lot of news and shit like that. So the narrative of UFOs, where is your take on that? Were you a firm UFO believer prior to what's going on in the news, and then what's your thoughts now?
I think there's definitely something bigger than us out there.
Yeah.
I don't think we've discovered it yet.
Yeah.
I don't, it's easy to say UFOs or because that's what we have to like make it be something that we can relate to.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but I think there's something. I don't think the government's hiding it from us.
Yeah.
That's why I think you kind of get in that conspiracy. Like, our government's not that great at hiding things from us, and so I don't think they would be able to hide something that big.
Yeah, it's weird. Shit. If some as anything of that nature came across your desk, like, would you cover something like that? Or like some crazy shit happen? It's like, oh shit, this can be a pivotal point, but at the end of the day, it's like it's so controversial. Like, should I do this? You know what I mean?
As long as I think like a lot of the stories I get into, a lot of people hit me up with tips. Say, hey, I know about this thing. Will you cover it?
Yeah.
I'm a small little shop, right? It's me and a couple of photographers and somebody helps with research.
Yeah.
I kind of look for stories that have been investigated by professional investigation, whether that be an agency or a company. So that way I can take their work and then try and package that up into a story.
Okay.
I may go and add some stuff on top and trying to, connect a couple more dots, but it would need to be something where an investigative agencies come in and weighed in, said, hey, we think there's something here. Here's why. Yeah. There's one that's interesting right now. The US government does have documentation of these objects going across the ocean that we've caught on fighter jet cameras and
like the aircraft and all that.
And so they themselves have acknowledged we can't figure out what this is.
Right.
Okay, we got something. Let's talk about it, right? And it's not because I think that that's more valuable than another story. It's like I got something to work with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, am I just trusting somebody I've never met before who gives me a very compelling story? And it's like, well, I could give you a compelling story just by telling you, but give me something to work with.
Got you. Now, being in Washington, when it comes to that shit, we're in a very interesting space because the term UFO was created here. Like it was through some one of the military dudes seen it flying towards one of the mountains out here. I think Mount Baker, some shit like that, and termed it like that. That's where the term came from, UFO, as well as Sasquatch and all this crazy shit. Big sightings happen out here. So if somebody were to start picking up on certain things out this way, it would be crazy. But where I want to go with this is, with all the stories you've covered, like, is there any moment where you're like, should I cover this? Like, should I talk about this? Like, okay, let's talk on the guy in Featherway, right? Was that Featherway?
Which one?
We're supposedly meeting up for the
Tukwila.
Tukwila. That's some crazy shit. And then to unravel that this is some high military dude from that, what transpires from like that people don't know or don't see
Yeah.
on your end?
Is
Like,
this the one that got shot or the one
yeah,
I
the
just
one that
bought?
got
Yeah,
shot. Yeah.
because I just did another Army colonel too.
I
Who,
thought word. So okay,
yeah,
that was something different.
totally different. I
Oh
should have done
shit.
that better because a lot of people kept saying, "Did
I
you ever
thought it
talk
was the
about this
same
guy?"
thing. I thought you were going deeper into it.
No,
Oh
totally
shit.
different guy. So that one came. I was in Vegas at the time for
Word.
National Association of Broadcasters. It's like this yearly thing where
Yeah.
everybody gets together and tell each other how great they are. And so I'm down there doing that,
Yeah.
and then I hear about this shooting. I hear SPD shot a guy, but it's in Tequila, and that's all I really got.
Word.
So I get a hold of my photographer, say, "Hey, you got to get out there. I don't know what it is." They get out there and realize, okay, SPD was out here on an op. They get the car getting towed away. That got towed away really early on, way earlier than it should be.
Right.
Nobody else caught it. So I start looking into, well, who owns the car? What does this mean? And I ended up being the one to actually break who this guy was.
Oh shit.
And so it turned out he was a retired Navy captain. And for those of you maybe not in the military, captain in the Army is not as high as captain in the Navy. Captain in the Navy is the one commanding the boat, the CO.
So this is super high.
That's right. Next,
Okay.
below admiral, but
Okay.
next, one step below.
Okay.
So, and then as I dive deeper into him, he ran the medical facility for Guantanamo Bay under Bush and Obama for a couple of years.
Damn.
It's like, oh, this guy's a pretty high functioning individual. For me, and kind of the way my mind works when I'm looking at a story, I think the way that people always want to make the bad guy look like the villain, like they've done in the movies in the past, like bad guys don't look like villains. The really good ones are this guy.
Yeah,
he's
like
living life to a high level.
Oh,
He's functional. He's doing big things.
Crazy, yeah.
And he's also a terrible person at the same time.
Damn.
And so we start diving in more and more, and I realize nobody else has figured out who this guy is. And so I wait a couple of days. We also were able to get a photographer into the building when nobody else could.
Right.
And I was able to talk to a couple of witnesses who were in the area and put together stories. So make the decision, okay, we're going to break this. This is who this guy is.
Right.
And it's also a cop shooting. And people a lot of times kind of go to battle stations when they hear the cop shot somebody.
Yeah.
What I found with this was when I put the story out, it went really big, really quickly, multiple millions of views across platforms. And 99% of people were like, why didn't they just keep shooting? Why didn't they reload? Right? Because people who are child molesters or in those things the public's fine with them. Whatever happens to them is fine.
So wait, he got shot, but they didn't kill him.
Oh, they killed him.
Oh, they killed him.
Yeah.
Okay.
They shot him. They basically mag dumped on him. They shot him about 17.
The same
20
other
times.
story, damn near.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That first. So he's dead. And that was part of his, I think he was probably going to be implicated in other things from what I can tell.
Yeah.
But because he's dead, the investigation kind of stopped.
So what would they, same scenario? He was trying to meet
so
minors?
what he believed is he was going to meet a woman who had her 13-year-old and I believe 7-year-old daughters, that she was going to rent him and she would just sit aside as he did what he wanted to do. He had been texting her back and forth. And then that day was supposed to meet them to do this. And as I've gotten more into these type of stories now, this is not an uncommon thing where I got one. So the next one I just broke last week was Army colonel. Yeah. And this guy was a cardiologist at Madigan. Yeah. And then has had a pretty successful life professionally. He gets on talking to a UC or an undercover. And she has put out an ad that says she's 19 because that particular site she was using, you had to be 19. But then as soon as he starts messaging, she's like, hey, I'm actually only 13. Are you still okay with that?
Oh, shit.
And not only is he okay with it, he goes from being willing to pay $300. So he's like, I'll give you 400. I'll give you 500. I'll give you 600. I got to see you today. Like, saying this is way more valuable to me. I'll pay a lot more.
Sheesh.
And then he goes to meet and finds out he's meeting cops and then tries to change his story. And he's going to court here in just a couple of months if he doesn't get another delay. Yeah. I got another one. I can't give a lot of detail yet, but another doctor, not in the military, but he actually got busted at work when he was going into work in the lobby as he's walking into, he's a general practitioner. Because of that is the only reason his employer pulled him that day, because now they knew these other guys get in this, they don't tell their employer. Right. And because they're not guilty yet, they've only been charged. There's nobody actually checking the stuff. The doctor I just busted, he's still in good standing with Department of Health. If you look his license up, he's no restrictions, good to go. And so part of what I'm hoping my purpose in these is to try and change that to where Department of Health says, hey, okay, if you haven't been convicted, valid, all right, but we need to put you on a restriction list. We need to do something, especially when it's this type of thing. Like, and for those saying, well, if they're not convicted, maybe maybe it shouldn't be even looked at.
Yeah.
I have pages of text messages. We've got, there's a lot of evidence here. Now, you still are due your day in court.
Yeah.
That's what this country's founded on. Go through that process.
Yeah, go through trial. Yeah,
But when you are, accused of, and there's a high amount of evidence that you are trying to have sex with children,
yeah,
there should be at least some restrictions during that court
no,
process.
for sure.
We do it with plenty of other professions,
Yeah,
where people go on administrative leave,
Yeah.
things like that, and it's known. But
That's
this is a very
crazy.
different thing, and it's frustrating. But what I found in that is a lot of people really connect with those stories
Okay.
in ways that I'm still trying to understand. I've talked to people who work in that space, the investigators, and
Yeah.
they have said there's hundreds of us working out here in King, Pearson, Snohomish, hundreds,
Yeah.
and we don't even think we're putting a dent in it.
It seems like
Yeah.
like you just said, I brought up one and you came with three more, like
Yeah.
in the same, like,
Those are some ones I can talk about
damn,
today.
what the fuck?
I got many more. And
Sheesh.
I've talked to about, well, what do you think changed? Because growing up, I mean, we were always told not to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Or, there was all that, but I didn't think it was like this. They
Fucking
said,
internet, if you ask me.
That's
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
They believe it's the internet. So, and twofold. So you got more available victims
Right.
who are on the internet who could be talked with. But more than that, in the past, these suspects, these guys doing this, didn't have others to talk with. It was very hard for them to find other people.
Yeah.
Now they found others, and they're getting better at their skills. They're teaching each other. They're now trading child pornography,
Oh shit.
producing it and trading it at a high level
Yeah.
because they can connect in that way. In
Yeah.
turn, you may have a few people who maybe thought about it but weren't going to cross that, or weren't going to be as prolific.
Yeah.
And now they can, and they can go this hard. And so now there's a lot of available victims and a ton of suspects who are now able to communicate with each other.
It's fucking a system basically happening.
It's like going to prison, and you learn from other people who've gone through it.
Exactly.
Now they're learning.
Damn, that's fucking crazy. Now going about this, like, does it get easy doing this shit, or does it get harder? Would you say covering these type of stories?
It's hit and miss. It's gotten easier to learn about them.
Yeah.
I've got the doctor that I mentioned. I haven't put the story out yet. That came in on a tip.
Yeah.
The one actually down there that I just talked about this last week, the colonel, that was a tip.
Okay.
So now every morning I try to go through the bookings of King and Pierce County. We're going to try and add Snohomish here soon too, and see who's been booked on certain types of things. Obviously homicide and murder, but these child sex trafficking ones, I got a couple other ones, like I said, I can't even talk about right now, but that we just cut off morning bookings, and then we start looking into their past and realize that they've done this repeatedly. That's another thing I think people don't realize is, like, I've got another one that will probably come out this week. He has been arrested 4 times, and each time he gets to trial and is found to not be competent to stand trial. So they drop the charges, let him out, and then he goes and rapes another 9-year-old.
Oh damn.
Right?
Yeah.
Gets caught. And that's the only one we know about. I'm sure others have happened that we don't know about. Gets back in the system, and then the prosecutors don't follow through. So this is another one we're going to try and push, like, hey, this is a prosecutorial issue.
Yeah.
They're not following back up. They're not putting him in somewhere where he can become competent to stand trial. And if there's a mental health issue in a situation of others, that's a real defense.
Yeah.
But when you're just going back out to commit the same crime again, we owe the public better than that.
So what do you think that is to where he's able to beat this shit over and over again? You saying, is it good lawyers, or is this just fucking the system?
I think it's a mix.
Playing in his
There may
favor.
very well be a mental component to this guy. I've never met him, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not a mental health professional. That may be a component of it.
Yeah.
But when that leads to you being let out on the street to grab another prepubescent girl, that's a problem that we should not just accept as part of the mental health challenge.
Right. Now, on a broader aspect, is this becoming easier for you as far as, like, the bigger you become, the more leads are just throwing your way?
Yeah.
Or is that harder in a sense to where you have to weave out more shit? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure every lead comes across your desk isn't like an actual legit one, right?
I get a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. So it's like,
I get a lot of tips overall. What's happened now is I get these people who are like, hey, I want to send you a tip, but, like, can you call me? I'm not going to call you.
Yeah.
If you can't write it up in a few sentences, at least give me an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And it's not like I don't want to talk to people, but, like, I usually get between 20 and 50 leads a day. That's it.
Yeah.
And I want to put effort on the things we can actually make an impact on.
Yeah.
But I think if you feel like the only way I'm going to understand what you have going on is by you
talking,
that's weird, right? Like, just write it out. And another thing too, for people who are going to write, if you don't hit me up, say, hey, I have something for you if you're interested. Tell me what it is.
Yeah.
Do it in 5 to 10 sentences.
Okay.
And then wait for me to kind of look through it, see what we got.
Yeah.
Because if I open it up and it's like, there's paragraphs here,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be that complicated.
Now, what is your process? So let's say you get something juicy, right? And it's like, do you go to Google from there? Kind of let me look
Google.
into
I also
this.
search all the court records. So generally, I'm hoping
Court.
that they
Okay.
have something that ties to King, Pierce, or Snohomish County because that's going to be my easiest. We
Gotcha.
can do outside counties. Don't not send it to me if it's in other counties, but
Gotcha.
that's going to be easiest. As I said earlier, I'm going to try and go towards who's this person been investigated by, so we can start with that, get
Okay.
that stack of papers.
Okay.
Then we start kind of working backwards from there. I also, do a lot of other stuff besides sex trafficking, but we're kind of in that right now. So on the sex, child molestation side, I don't want creepy uncle. And here's why.
Yeah.
I can't tell that story without inadvertently exposing who the victim is.
Okay. Now, when you say creepy uncle, you mean like somebody's family molesting?
Yeah, when you're related to the
okay,
victim,
yeah.
that's really hard for me to do. And I've had a couple times where like, well, the victim's okay, she wants a story. I'm not here to make that decision for you that you want that to be public.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into something that maybe 5-10 years down the road, you go, man, I really wish I hadn't done that. And that doesn't mean that your story as a victim is not valid and you have every right for that to be out. But I want you to take some time to think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe get to an adult age a little bit farther and then make that decision.
Okay.
And so I'm generally looking more for people who have affected multiple lives, especially lives that they're not connected to by relation.
Okay.
And especially if they've done it through their profession, like doctors and so on. Those are the ones I'm generally looking for. And again, like I think people get frustrated. They go, well, my story is valid too. I'm not saying it's not valid. It's very valid. Your experience is valid. I want to be able to do this in a way that you feel good about later and stick to stuff that affects the public broadly.
Okay. Now, what would you say the end goal is? Your own prop firm, is that the right term? Because systematic-wise, I hear you say like that you have when you're out of town, you have somebody on the ground that you can ring up. Hey, they pull up to cover that. So you have a team.
Yeah.
So what would be the end goal for you? How do you see it? Like, where would you want to be in this space? Like the new, because like I said off camera, like you're like fucking the news. I'd rather watch Steve than the news. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because it's new age. I like the format. You can right to it. It's hands on. It's like you're really in this shit. Like I believe it. You know what I mean? You're right there. Versus like everybody's skeptical now when it comes to the government and the news. They know they're aware of agendas and certain things like that. So, what would be the end goal to you in your head when it comes to?
I think what I'd like to see in the next couple of years is get to an organization somewhere between 10 and 15 people, most predominantly photographers out in the field. You got to hit the streets in this thing.
Yeah.
So many of the news organizations now don't, and I don't want to villainize them too much. A lot of people, I really like what they do. I respect what they do. I have a lot of good friends in that space. I think they would agree with me too. The budgets have been slashed. The corporations that own them are just parting these places out. And yet they're still putting minutes is a lot of time to weather and traffic and things like that we can just get easily on our phone and don't need.
True.
You've got to get out there, get on the streets. The other thing that they've started doing now is they'll just take, the photo that like someone from they call them PIOs, public information officer, the person who's meant to communicate with the media. They go out their phone, they do a photo, they do a write-up of what's going on. They send it to the news and the news just regurgitates that. That's basically letting the government tell you what they're doing.
Yeah.
Get out there, do it. Yeah. So I may still use part of what they said, but get out there and actually verify it, see it on the ground. So I want to get to a point where we have, 10 to 15 people, probably 10 of them are photographers out in the street. I'm just going around to whatever the biggest thing is to do kind of my thing, to do my opener. And then we are producing more content behind the scenes, including more human interest stories. Like my stuff, it gets dark. It doesn't bother me that much, but I think people sometimes they're scrolling like, man, I can't take another child molester story right now. Like I got to scroll past. I want to do stuff about good things happening in the community too.
Yeah.
And show people things that they either one can go out and do this weekend or participate in, or if there's a cause they can contribute to, do more of those. We did one a few months ago for that bus that went into the skate park in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, all right, we got this interesting group. They catered to a certain audience of people who felt like they weren't getting represented in that community. That's an easy story. Let's go do that. I want to do more of those. And for me, trying to delegate my time to what's going to get the most views and what people feel is really missing, I tend to do more kind of the gritty night stuff, but I want to develop that out. And then try and figure out a way to monetize. It's hard to monetize through social media.
That's what I wanted to ask too, like the monetization on everything. And then the balance. I'm glad you brought that up because like, seems like the news is just bullshit. Yeah. Like negative shit, you know what I mean? Where's the good shit? Like, you know what I'm saying? So some people need that in their life because life is just hitting life in, and it's like, bro, life just can't be just negative shit
Right.
every way. There's good shit in this shit. So,
Yes.
but there's little people touching on the good shit, like you said. But then again, do people want to hear that shit? Like, you know what I mean? Because the people do gravitate towards the negative shit a lot. You know what I mean? So
That's it. We're all our
yeah,
own worst like viewer, right?
yeah.
Everybody's
So
unhappy with what they see. If you change what you want to intake, the
yeah,
news will switch tomorrow.
yeah, yeah,
They're giving you what your viewer and habits say you want. I'm able to like niche down, and
yeah,
for me, 1.3 million people. That's my own. I got a job now.
yeah, yeah,
National TV news can't operate on an audience that small, so
yeah.
it's an opportunity for me. But it's tough. Like people get so frustrated. It's like, well, apparently when nobody's looking, you watch all that shitty news all the time because
Yeah.
that's why they keep making it.
That's why they keep making it. Now back to the
Yeah.
monetization side of things. So as far as like, so everything that you're doing, like you said, when the news came to you and they're saying we can pay you X amount of dollars to, is that an ongoing thing or
Yeah,
what?
so we do a flat rate contract. This is what's worked for us. I don't want to have to be negotiating with them every night.
Okay,
And they don't usually have decision makers who can, they can maybe make a purchase decision, but not a negotiating decision.
gotcha.
So we go flat rate. There's a local price and there's a national price.
Gotcha.
And then on social media, I get paid on the views on TikTok,
Okay,
Instagram, a little something. Then if you get sponsorship, there's some money there.
yeah,
Um, but then you're kind of stuck just like the other networks are of like, okay, well, if I'm going to get paid off views, how am I going to make people watch it? Well,
yeah,
inherently, I'm probably going to make it pretty spicy in the opener and, try and go after that type of story.
yeah,
So am I any better than them? Right. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I would like to eventually get to not that everybody needs another app, but like a local news app
yeah.
where we just we keep you fed, kind of like something between Citizen
That'd
and
be
a news
dope.
app.
Like your
Yeah.
own fucking app.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Photogsteve app.
Yeah, because you
Man,
got
I'll download
Citizen's
that
kind
shit.
of weird. And
Yeah,
Citizen, if you got Citizen app, you keep getting these alerts like there's a sex offender 400 feet. Like, what am I
yeah.
supposed to do with that? Like, I don't even,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't know, man.
Who
I
the
only
fuck
see
is this
two
guy?
people in the room and I'm getting this alert. Like, you
Oh,
know,
no, that's crazy. Yeah,
it's weird. And so, and
yeah,
they're really delayed on their stuff.
yeah,
And so then you get the news apps. That's a whole lot of different things. Or they're giving
yeah.
you these national news alerts because the president's doing a press conference. I just want what's happening within 300 miles of me all the time.
Got you. Yeah, that's dope. Um, no, that's dope as hell. Damn, I just was about to say something. I'm gonna go to here. I'm gonna go to Deadshot because that's
Yeah.
one of the big things you just covered. Now, prior to what has just happened, were you just watching like everybody else? Like,
I watched all of his stuff. We'd talked. He'd sent me some documents in the
Word.
past, some stories that I found interesting. He was always kind of up and down.
Okay.
There would be times he would blow my phone up for a week,
yeah,
and then we wouldn't talk for 2 months. And then he would delete his account. He would say it would get deleted, but he would delete his account and start over and kind of keep doing this.
yeah,
I think he had an ability to find out things that nobody else was able to find out,
yeah.
and that's valid, very valid.
So originally, did he reach to you like the type
Yeah.
of thing? That's how you came across. Like,
Yeah, he
who's this
first
guy?
hit me up.
Yeah.
I don't think his account was very big yet, and he just said, "Hey, I think I had talked about Faria Youssef, this girl who got gunned down by her
friend, right?
Yeah.
I seen that story. Yeah,
And I had put out something previous that he found interesting, but then he sends me this one on her and sent me the probable cause docs,
Right.
and didn't tell me because I kind of leaned on him. This was kind of where I was a little frustrated because
Yeah.
I leaned on him for a lot of the information. He didn't tell me that in her religion, you're not supposed to show their face uncovered after they've passed.
Oh yeah, Islam.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so he had sent me some photos to use that he'd gotten from her. And I don't think he got it unethically. He got it from her Instagram or whatever. Beautiful girl. That
Yeah.
always, when it's online, like that's going to help, right? That's going to get people paying
Yeah,
attention.
for sure.
I put it out. I stand by the story. I think it was a good story, and I think it portrayed her as she was.
Yeah.
But man, the heat I got for putting her face out there,
Word.
and I felt terrible. And I was like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
This really, was meant to just be an educate. That part of the community over there, especially Somali community, doesn't get covered a lot.
Yeah.
The news kind of feels like it's kind of like any rough area, like, well, that's just what happens out there, and they just throw away an entire community of people who would also still like to know what's happening. out
Yeah.
there. And so for me, that's kind of where I thrive, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's get out there, tell that story nobody is.
Yeah.
My intentions were solid. I still stand by the work, but the people in her circle that I was frustrated by.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good to see what he was capable of getting. He got good information.
Okay.
And then we would talk from time to time. I think what was problem is sometimes he would send me documents where, and I don't, there's been this insinuation that I wait for the police to tell me to, okay, I don't.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put something out when it's still in an investigative stage where they're still identifying who's who.
Okay, yeah.
You know, where he got hung up in the end there was he put out a name of somebody who was within hours of arrest,
Yeah.
and they heard their name and they got on a plane and they dipped.
Okay. So it's like
And
almost a heads up and like
yeah,
that.
and I'm not saying you should give a heads up or not. You're now affecting the story. It's
Yeah.
not about who are you protecting, who are you not. That's kind of secondary. I don't care about who's good or bad.
Yeah.
Don't affect the story. Cover
Yes.
the story.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would get stuff where I was like, and I think a lot of it too. I was what I was first blown away with, maybe, and it might have been 2 years ago when I first got home. It was the amount of gang activity, the amount of many more gangs that there are now.
Oh yeah.
And so I want to come in and go something I'm a little bit more knowledgeable. I was like, I got to kind of catch up to this
Yeah.
before I just start throwing people's names out there and
Yeah.
affiliations and things that I don't even understand yet. So I was kind of hesitant at that point. I think he was frustrated. So we didn't really work together a lot after that. And then it would just kind of be up and down. He would delete, then start over and go on. But then I started getting hit up by people saying, hey, this guy's hitting me up saying he can get me a confession if I give him 500 or $1,000.
Word.
And I was like, well, what do you want to do with that confession? If you're looking for a conviction,
Yeah.
him getting it's not going to get you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were looking at it for retribution, whatever, you know, if you think it's valid,
Just to
deal with that.
Yeah.
If you are hoping just to get peace of mind, you know, you got to weigh what are you in it for. But if you're looking for a conviction that needs to come from, you know, an interrogation room,
Yeah.
not somebody on social media. I could go get a conviction for you and they're not gonna do shit with it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, you know,
I'm sure there's more that goes into that.
That's
Just
right.
somebody coming forth saying.
So I got in that. Then girls hit me and say, hey, you got a copy of my sex. They wanted me to do a story on him extorting them. And I was like, I can't, there's nothing I work with here. So to that point, if you think I'm trying to like out him, like I guess I could have repeatedly.
Yeah.
There was nothing to work with. It sounded terrible. I felt bad for the people he was hitting up, but
Damn.
you also always felt like whenever you talk to him, like, what is the other motive here? Like, am I being recorded or what's up?
That's where I was at with it. I wanted him on the show as well. And so I'm like, he was just so adamant about finding the location to where the spot is. So I'm like, what is the motive here? Like, I don't know what the motive is. So I kind of just
I wouldn't have put his picture out either had it not been out 3+ months
it was already
ago.
out. It was already out. Yeah, people.
I think the people who got so defensive about that, you're just not really that tapped in the first place because you would have known this months ago.
Exactly.
I think what was interesting to me in that story in the end was the letter that SPD put in there, and I acknowledge too, he was never charged with anything that they put in that letter.
Oh, okay.
This was meant to be weighed in during the sentencing.
Okay.
So everything that was in it, I don't know that he'll ever be charged. He wasn't charged. But that's pretty wild that the cops went and wrote a letter.
So the police wrote a letter for the judge
yes.
of things allegedly that he
That's
done.
Right.
Word.
And it was from the robbery unit specifically. They didn't put a single cop's name on there, but they did say it was from the unit.
Word.
That was interesting. So I put that story out as it is. I believe I shot it straight, but then people feel a certain way about what he did or did not do ahead of that. And I think got defensive. And it's like, okay, then again, I've kind of packaged up what happened. Take the baton, go make some content, talk about it, talk about your feelings on him.
Now, isn't it crazy to see like something like that, right? And then the divide of people like rooting for one thing and then like in defense about it in one sense. It's like, what? It's just crazy to see that shit, how it goes. Like, what? Hold on, where you got? I don't know, but it's just like crazy to see where people are at. Because when he's posting, he's doing this thing, there's a million people in the comments like, you're wrong. You're getting these people, you know what I'm saying? That's not true. And you're doing this. And then there's on the other end, there's people rooting for him. Like keep getting people locked up or keep people, whatever was going on, keep exposing these people.
My take was
there,
when I went through the comments, the people who were rooting for him and felt it was unfair were people not within the community in the first place.
Okay.
You know, it was people who didn't really understand what was going on.
Right.
And so they were like, well, I'm just glad somebody was finally telling me this.
Yeah.
Okay, valid. Yeah. But when the people within that community that he's supposedly talking to are not with it, that should tell you something.
Yeah. And then it goes to I don't know. From what he said, it was like he was convicted of armed robbery, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was armed robbery of a T-Mobile store, and then another thing where he was driving down the freeway. Somebody calls, says that he pointed a gun at them. Yeah. They then get law enforcement up, kind of chase him. I don't think it was high speed, but they end up pitting him in, and they say he rams a cop car. I have not seen all the documentation on that, but that was what was insinuated, and they convicted him on both of those. Jeez. And then he got collectively 50 months, so 8 months for one charge and 42 for the other.
Which roughly about what, five
years? About a little over 4 years.
4 years, which is crazy.
Yeah. That's a lot of time. And that was kind of what also
Damn.
stuck out to me is like,
Yeah.
you could do bigger stuff and not get that much time. It was the letter.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
letters why
so you think that helped? Like, oh
yes.
yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
that came back to me as like, this is interesting. This guy, because he says he's helping the cops all the time, right?
Yeah. So like that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. This is an industry story because it's like, what the fuck? You know what I
And
mean?
that
Like,
to me was it. Like, I think, again, people got defensive, but it's like, he says he's been helping the cops, that the cops rely on him.
yeah.
They're the reason he's getting 50 months.
Yeah.
And not even because of the charges he did. They went out of their way to
Yeah.
write this letter.
Yeah.
Something's weird. That's the
Something's
story.
weird.
And so there's nothing to be pissy at me about for it. Just
Yeah.
that's interesting.
And I've seen a post where he was like, the news used my fucking shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like he
Yeah.
was charged up, like I'm doing something.
He also went and
Just-
hung out a detective in a post, took a picture of got a picture of the guy, and then went about how trash this guy was.
Oh,
Turns
shit.
out that was the guy who was investigating him on one of the
Oh
things.
shit.
Now, maybe what
What
he
the
said was
fuck?
still valid, but you
Yeah.
forgot to mention that he was also the one investigating. That might have been worth at least
Damn.
slipping in there. By the way, he's investigating me, and I think he's trash because of this, and this.
Damn. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Would you say that's one of the wildest stories? Of course, you covered Wilder, but
I mean,
would you
yeah, I
say-
have, but no, I think he is one of the wildest stories
That's pretty
because his
crazy.
broad appeal. I mean,
Yeah.
he's an interesting guy. I
Yeah.
think he's going to come out, and I think he's going to be big again.
Yeah,
And I
that's what I
look
was just
for-
going like. What do you? Like, I think he still has it. Just from this, just ups him again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like he can very well come
And
back
I'm looking forward to watching that rise.
and
Like
see
I'm going to
what.
be there.
Yeah, what
And
the
I'm going
fuck
to
he
watch,
makes
and
out
I'm
of
going to
it.
hopefully maybe we'll work on some more stories.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing the guy away. I
Yeah.
think he's got the ability to come back and do it again.
I think he will have to choose though which side he's
Yeah.
on. You know what I mean? Like,
Hopefully he makes it through what he's
the
going
two
through.
sides
right
you
now.
can't do
Yeah.
as you see. Like,
Yeah.
fuck, you know what I mean? People looking at you, but yeah, that shit's crazy. So, now what does Steve like to do in his free time? Do you have free
Ooh.
time?
Not really.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at doing nothing.
Yeah.
Today's Father's Day. I pretty much was in bed all day
Chilling.
long.
Yeah.
Doing some stuff with my daughter.
That's
But
cool.
I like to drive. I drive a lot, but I
Okay.
still do like to just drive and go places.
Okay, just
I think
sightseeing.
Sites, yeah, just without even a plan. Just like I'm going to go that way, and I'll be back in a few hours,
Hell
kind of
yeah.
thing, and just kind of see where it goes. Because I just kind of like the noise to get quiet.
It's the beauty of Washington. You just fucking
Yeah, it's not hard to
find-
get anywhere.
Yeah,
right?
you can find some shit. Where am I at? Waterfall over here and things like that over there.
I like to get back out at night, do some more night photography too. I haven't
Not-
done that. in a while.
yeah. The photography shit is dope, man. Do you have a preference when it comes to cameras and shit? Like, what side you leaning on?
So I'm in the Sony ecosystem pretty
Okay.
heavy. I got 3 A7R4s and FX3.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you got an FX3.
Yes,
I want one of those, man. I just used one for a music video not too long ago on DR.
it's a game changer.
It
on
was
low
dope.
light.
Yeah,
So the native ISO 8000 and 12.5
yeah.
is insane. Like we got at
And it's
night,
what,
I had
10-bit,
to
right? It's 12-bit.
I believe it's 12.
12. Yeah.
You actually got to tone it down at night. It's that bright
Word,
because I
yeah.
got a 50mm 1.4 on it, and I
Okay.
found at night I was actually having to like turn my f-stop up.
Now, you use that for photography, or that was just strictly videos?
Mainly video. I
Okay,
do the
yeah.
photography more with the A7R4.
You seen the movie they shot with that?
No, I haven't yet.
Like, it's like Netflix.
Really?
So that's one of the things they used to like kind of sell it. Like, this camera was used to shoot this fucking Hollywood movie.
It makes sense.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
dope though. It's like it makes you wonder, like, what the fuck? So like anybody watching the movie is like, shit,
Yeah.
if you can do this with that, I want that. You know what I mean?
Its ability just for contrast
Yeah.
and color interpretation was unlike any. Normally, you get to the next camera, you're like, it feels good because it's new.
Yeah.
And then later you look by, I was like, the first day I looked at the footage, I went to
Yeah.
a drag race thing out in Kent, and I was like down on the ground
Oh,
where
yeah,
the
yeah, I
road's
d-
black,
Oh yeah.
the sky's bright, and everything is in exposure.
Oh,
I
that,
never held
fucking
something.
dynamic range. Is
Yeah,
crazy.
I've
yeah.
never seen that before. It was
Yeah,
wild. So
that's dope.
being able to do that kind of stuff was like, I'd never gotten to
Hell
do
yeah.
that.
I used it in DR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's bright, it's clouds, fucking the water, and then you got the sand bright too.
Yeah.
So like everything fucking hitting. That's dope. What do you have is that where you want to stay in the ecosystem? Is Sony, or do you have your eye on like a Red or something?
I mean, I'd love to get into red
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I got to use one recently. I was working for a guy who does a series on Netflix called The Religion Business. He
Oh,
goes
for real?
after like mega churches and stuff
Word.
that are
Yeah.
not handling the money properly.
Oh shit.
And so he wanted, we went and shot an interview. And then the idea was you're going to go to a couple churches here locally and try and run up on the pastor and get him to answer some questions.
shit.
So, which was a weird experience. I haven't done anything like that in
Yeah.
a long time. And I didn't think about getting recognized.
Yeah.
And so as we're like running up, everybody's like, "Oh, it's the news guy."
Oh,
and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And so we ended up not getting up to him, but got to work with it. And again, that dynamic range was
Yes.
unlike anything I'd ever had. And he also had anamorphic lenses on it.
Dope.
unreal. Like I became a believer that day. So the challenge, you can actually pick one up for under $5,000, but then you got to get all you
You
got
gotta
the
get all the
cube.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
And
gonna
that's
be
where they
10
say
grand.
fucking getting the red is at, because like you can get the red for whatever price, and
Yeah.
then it's like adding on. It's like going to be double.
Because you
Damn
got to
near
have a
whatever you're gonna
viewfinder. It's not like those things aren't
Yes.
optional with those
Yeah.
cameras.
Viewfinder, battery, fucking
Yeah.
the storage, all that shit
Yep.
costs in the red ecosystem is crazy money. So, but eventually I want to get there too with the reds. All right, we can end it on this note. Food. What is your favorite food spots to
Ooh.
hit out here in Washington?
I like pho.
Pho, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. It's most practical. I mean, I like steak. I
Okay.
like steak a lot, but pho is like
What's your
all the
favorite
time.
pho spots?
There's a pho spot down in Renton, down off of 4th. I think it's not What the Pho. There's another one like that I like.
I seen that one. Yeah, what the
that
pho,
one's
yeah.
good. And then Dong Tap, that was in the CD, or no, they were in Chinatown, and now they're down in Tequila.
Okay.
They make their own noodles and stuff, and it's a really unique experience.
Dope.
Yeah.
And then outside of pho, you got pho. Let's give us 2 more.
All right. I really like steak.
Okay.
There's a really good steak house down in Renton. Also, it's kind of similar to Jack's over in Issaquah that I like.
Okay.
And then I do like carne asada.
Carne asada, me too.
But
yeah,
I like the trucks. I don't like to go, I don't like to go to a restaurant. I want to go to a place where you're a little sketched out because you know it's going to be good.
West Seattle is a little spot. I go to White Center is a little spot over there.
You look in there, you don't see a sink to wash your hands, but you know it's just going to be good.
They got some sanitizer for you.
Yeah.
Hit that sanitizer, you know what I mean? All right, man. That's cool, man. Damn, so have you ate out here in Tacoma?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people like the Tacoma food too. They say like we got like different shit as far as like the people that get tired of Seattle shit or whatever. They come out to Tacoma.
Tacoma's good, man. It's changed so much down here.
Yeah,
it's
different.
Real diverse area.
Yeah. Still crazy here and there, but it's getting more entertainment wise, like from what we can see, like a lot of more entertainment going on out this way. You know what I mean? As far as like shows and then different events, going on and shit like that. You be out here too covering shit?
Yeah, so 2 of the photographers live down this way. So we're starting to catch more. Got the homicide out here on 55th and Fawcett a few nights ago, which may actually turn out to be self-defense. But trying to get down here more. I've gotten some other bigger stories when there's a helicopter down, stuff like that. I'm really, like I said, I want to try and get a couple more down here, get a few up in Snohomish County, and then I just drive around to whatever's happening. Do my intro thing. We'll send all of it to the stations. We don't gatekeep anything.
Okay.
And then see what else we get. There's that other one. I broke the story on that city council member killing that girl.
Oh yeah. So was that what happened? He killed. Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember at first
he
it was
convicted, but he pretty much
he had blood on him. Yeah. It was like, what happened? And
that turned out to be his blood.
Oh, where?
He tried to kill himself after killing her. But he's still going to go through the process, and he's due that process. But that was a wild one. That was one too. That's been what's been interesting about the content. So I got a really high amount of first responders who follow, and then I got a whole lot of people from the other side of the street that follow too.
Damn.
I got tipped off the day that she was found by a couple of pimps who were like, "Hey, this guy just killed one of the girls. You know who he is."
Is there a motive to it, or it's just?
It appears they were in a long-term relationship of some kind. She was dancing as well. Damn. There's been some dispute on what she did before that, but she definitely was dancing. He met her in the club, and then decides, "Hey, I don't want you doing that stuff anymore." He's in his late 50s. Yeah, he's in his late 50s. She's 20 years old. They don't make sense.
What the fuck? Bro?
So he decides he's going to pay her 10 grand a month to hold her up, and so she doesn't have to do that work anymore. Challenge is it's in her, right? So that's not good enough.
Can't save her, bro.
That's it. So it's in her, and he's struggling with that, and he's showing up at the house all the time. And then gets into that last time. Something happens. Then he tries to off himself and then isn't successful. Sits there for another day before he Googles an attorney. Damn. Attorney shows up, calls 911. So I waited till the next day because his name wasn't on the booking records. Even though I know it's him, I actually had filmed stuff of him in the past. I kind of half knew him just through my work. So when I got the photo, I was like, shit, that looks like James. And I was like, hey, you're asking me who this guy is. Do you know who this guy is? Like, we hear he might be a politician. I was like, oh, fuck, this is James. So I'm trying to wait to get some sort of document, even though I know it to be true, right? Like if I put something out, it's not half baked. I got to have something. Wasn't until like 5:30 the next morning, they finally book him. Damn. And so I went with it. No news knew. Nobody knew. And it was a testament to the work. And like, you know, I get a lot of this stuff because these are people who won't talk to the news. They're not going to call law enforcement, but they still want the story out there.
Yeah.
You know, for so much of the public who thinks somehow, you know, they don't want the news to, no, everybody does. Everybody wants their experience and what they're living through to
Yeah.
be known.
Yeah.
They just don't want it to be known of like, oh, this is happening and it's because their fathers aren't home. Is this somehow my people are really good
Yeah.
at keeping our fathers in the home, right? Like it's a bullshit narrative. Just tell it what it is.
Yeah.
Just here's what happened. Here's who got involved. That's it.
So,
And then people will say, yeah, I like it when you come out here and do this.
yeah.
Don't go throw something on the end to try and throw why you think this happened.
Yeah.
I don't know why it happened. I don't know what led up to. I know a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know why somebody shot somebody else or what their life's experience is. And it's not for me to try and summarize that life experience.
Here's what the facts or
That's it.
what's being said. You know what I mean?
And what that then comes to is I get more tips and more info than apparently most other news organizations with.
That's why I was asking, like,
people.
as you go on, does it become easier now that it's just like, you know, I'm sure it was harder then because you're like, you're starting a name for yourself. But now the name, they just know the.
Yeah. I'm not chasing scanner traffic. I'm usually chasing people who are saying, hey, something's popping off. I'm already headed there before the scanner traffic starts.
Damn.
By the time the cops are dispatched, I already knew 10 minutes ago it was about to pop off.
So you beating the cops there, damn.
Yeah. A lot of times we do. A lot of times we're waiting around the corner waiting for them to go get it under control. That's how we're getting that.
Before we leave, what is the stipulation when it comes to arriving on scene? Are you allowed to like go, like, are you allowed to be close or you have to stay back, or how does that shit work?
Yeah, they can absolutely set up their own, you know, tape line,
Yeah.
as you call it, and establish their scene for the investigation. So when I get up there early, because I also do have this other life where I've also been on the other side of the tape line, I usually kind of know where they're going to build out, where they're going to draw their tape.
Okay.
I try to right up front, just hold there. My lenses are able to reach. I don't need to come up.
And shit, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to come up on a victim and be like in their face, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is your worst day.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the space that you need.
Gotcha.
So, and I think if you're relying on trying to get the, you know, the bleed that lead shot, you don't know how to tell a story.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, there's a lot of things just in people or showing a victim crying, just somebody with their head down and their hands in their face. That tells a story. I don't need to get the tears.
Okay.
I don't need to get the sound of you
the
crying.
moment.
Yeah.
Also, like,
Get all of that. And I think you can create really compelling footage to go along with the narration without taking advantage of people's worst days.
Any craziness while doing it? Like, who the fuck are you, man? You know,
sometimes
what I mean?
that'll happen, or you know, they'll want to tell me I can't film.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. That's not true.
So,
there was one couple years ago. It ended up being a mass shooting. I learned a lot about just kind of the news industry. It was down in Renton at this Samoan dance hall.
Yeah.
And it popped off, and like 7-8 people got shot. And I got there before everybody because I was around the corner editing already.
Right.
So I'm trying to get some people bandaged up and stuff. They come in, they take over, they're doing their thing.
So you're like on scene like that, helping people that's bleeding out and shit.
So working on that. Then they show up. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do my camera thing. So I kind of clean off of that. I go over there. There's a thing called Code 4 where cops come on. They call Code 4. That means fire and medics can come in because they can't enter until the cops say they got it under control.
Okay.
The scene was so big that they called it too early. There's still people fighting and shit.
Damn.
So then fire department shows up. I got video of firefighters rolling on the ground with big Samoan dudes. Like, you know, the people who they're fighting with, they're not punching them in the face, but they're wanting to get through, get in. You know, there's somebody working on somebody who's dying that they know, and they're trying to rip those people off so they can go give them a hug and stuff.
Got you, yeah.
You know, those kind of scenes get pretty wild. But you know, those can be the most captivating ones to be able to help tell that story. No other news place showed up that night. And then I thought at the end of the night, and this is kind of the weird part of the business, like you don't want bad things to happen, but I'm also driving home going, I got the shot tonight. This is a good night.
That shit, yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm going to pay like a mortgage, pay maybe a whole year's worth of pay.
Yeah.
Man, I start calling around the next day. And once they figured out that it was like, there was multiple people with the gun, they're like, well, that's a shootout, not a shooter. We're not really interested.
But what the fuck?
Like, I was like, I got 7-8 people down here, and I got firefighters rolling with people. Yeah, but it sounds like that must just happen out there. And they just kind of killed it. The locals all told it, but the national, there was, I think, they have all these an offshoot of CNN bought it for a few $100. That was it. They weren't interested in telling the story. And it was like, you know, I felt like Gladiator at the end. Like, are you not entertained? Like, what do you want? What do you want from me?
They were hating, bro. Like, that's what it seemed like.
That was it.
You got
so it was like realizing that they would just, even a big story, they're like, well, we're not going to tell that story because that's just what that community must go through. And I thought that's terrible. Like,
wild.
And when I put the story out, a lot of people who were in the video clearly in their worst day, emotionally in their worst day,
Yeah.
reached out to me like, "Hey man, thank you for showing up.
Word.
That was me over here. That
Oh
was me over
shit.
there." Or
Yeah.
getting family members reaching out. And I thought, because I was a little nervous to put it out, like, are
Yeah.
they gonna be? No, they were happy about it. They were thankful that somebody came and tried to tell what happened.
The story.
Yep.
That's dope. I want to end it on this note. One more again.
Yeah.
Okay. Boom. Going home from something like that.
Yeah.
Is it hard to decompress at the house? Like, what do you married?
No, but I got a daughter,
lady,
all that.
daughter. Is it hard to go home and decompress? Like, are you up at night? Like, damn, did you not know what the fuck I just witnessed? I'm sure you gotta.
Sure.
It's hard to. I'm sure it's probably hard to flick that off and then go home and be daddy mode. Or
I think it's part of why I really gravitate towards the work. So there's some people who can't process that. I sleep better on nights like that. But here's why. Let me explain why.
Oh shit.
Because of all the things that we worry about. Just today, right? We got to get here. We got to get everything working. You got time. All those things to worry about. Yeah. And then there's other days where you're like, man, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do the real big things?
Yeah.
And then you go see somebody else's day just end. And you realize, like, man, all that shit that I was worried about doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's humbling.
Yes, that's it. And so I kind of go in that. It reminds me that all the things I worry about that would keep me up at night don't really matter. And I'm thankful that I even get to be here and be stressed or be pissed off or be sad about something or be worried for my daughter. And that in itself is a gift.
That's a fucking dope dynamic. I didn't even think of, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Like, shit, what would it be like in your shoes seeing this shit? Like, do you fucking stay up at night? But to look at it like that makes complete sense to me. Like, shit,
I think it's either in you that way or not, right? It's hard to flip to that, but if that's what you have, then going into those types of situations is probably, it becomes a talent that you can do that others can't.
Sheesh. So
take advantage of that and do that thing that others can't.
Man, there you guys have it, man. Photogsteve in this bitch, man. This is a good interview, man. Good podcast. I thank you once again for pulling up GTKE podcast. If you want to do any shout outs or any last words, man, go ahead and
follow on any platform. Photogsteve81. Thank you for having me on.
For sure. And we can wrap that.
That was good.
Man, appreciate it, man. Yeah. Damn.